destroy an idea.
If you're watching this, you probably know the show already. You probably love the show already. But you probably don't know it's Pinko commie propaganda, do you? Do you? Well, buckle up, because...
A bold premise, Ryan. Don't worry about the Pinko commies, I got it from here. In a galaxy teetering on the edge of chaos, one station stood alone. Deep Space 9, where diplomacy collides with danger, and hope is a fragile thread, a bold vision, a new frontier. Star Trek. Deep Space. 9 shattered expectations, daring to explore the darker corners of the Federation's ideals. Friendship forged in fire. Enemies turned allies. Stories that shaped the stars. It wasn't just a show. It was a revolution in storytelling. A testament to resilience, redemption, and the strength to face the unknown. This was no ordinary journey, because space was just the beginning.
A bold premise, isn't it? Now, I normally do movies, but this show's important. Not because it's the best of the Star Trek series, not because it ushered in a new, gritty, realistic, dark Star Trek, not because it was television storytelling that wasn't bombarded with CGI in place of plot and character, but because people didn't notice that it was commie propaganda for a post-World War II world. And you didn't notice because it was good. The writers were good, the actors were good, the cinematography was good, and the plots were good, but the hints were there. So I was inspired by this YouTube video called The Best Sci-Fi TV Episode of the 90s Isn't a Fantasy, It's Real. And man, I have told you in every video I've ever done on this channel that I hate YouTube reviews. I mean, I hate YouTube reviews, and this is exactly why. The channel's called Giant Freakin' Robot. He's not a bad person. He's a communist, so he's really not a person at all. Because he talks about the greatest episode of the show, but names the most blatant commie propaganda in the entire series. It doesn't have the best writing. The plot is preachy, and the acting, well, the acting really oversells. Go watch his video for yourself. To save time, I'll give you a quick summary here if you don't want. The episode was the greatest one in the 90s because African Americans had it hard, and heritage Americans were racist, and he feels guilty, which is good. It's important, it's hard-hitting, a milestone that we need to never forget, except for one thing. It's not a good episode. So, I'm going to break character here for a minute and get something out of the way. It's something that's been like a poison in new movies. It's amplified guilt. What's amplified guilt? It's where you take a real life scenario and you lampoon it, like exaggerate it for maximum guilty feelings, strong guilty feelings. The premise of the episode is that Captain Sisko lost a friend in the Dominion War, and then the prophets become a plot device here by giving him a vision of being an African-American pulp sci-fi novelist who wants to write a science fiction novel of the show. The DS9 crew is like supportive cast, but they're helpless against it, and the series villains are evil, racist cops, and it ends on a downer where the guy gets a heart attack because they pulped his story, and this vision gives Sisko the courage to continue on with the war. And it is a bit of it's a flimsy story. I mean, it's good enough. It's good enough. But it's 22 minutes of preaching guilt to you with commercial breaks. I could talk about the characters, the setups, and the payoffs, but that's not this kind of video. What I want to point out here is that the power of film is changing how you see real life. And that's why I rant about good movies and don't focus on hate watching bad movies. Just knowing them is enough to change your personal Overton window, because to dismiss a thing means you have to account for it. So just knowing that this episode is out here and that this guilt stuff exists, now you have to account for it. And this isn't a theory, by the way. They tell you exactly what they're doing in a different episode next season called Bada Bing, Bada Bang. Now, I'm not going to bore you with that one's premise, but it uses the holosuite as a plot device to make a heist movie, like Ocean's 11, or the modern remake, Ocean's 11. And I'm not going to bore you with the serialized format of the half-hour television, but during the third of 5 acts, or the characters when they're at their lowest point, they deliver the moral message of the story through some dialogue between Sisko and his girlfriend.
You really want to know what my problem is? In 1962, black people weren't very welcome there.
Maybe that's the way it was in the real Vegas, but that is not the way it is at Vic's.
But don't you see? That's the lie.
It is meant to be. It shows us the way things could have been, the way they should have been.
We cannot ignore the truth about the past.
What it does is reminds us that we are no longer bound by any limitations, except the ones we impose on ourselves.
And there you have it. It doesn't matter if it's real or not, just so long as it's fun. Right there. 1 minute long conversation. This is why I hate reviews on YouTube. It's the, wrestling's not real, right? Crowd looking at the biographical fiction the same way. You're probably like me, though. You are. You know it's TV. It's always dramatic for better appeal. They add more, they do more. But the people who are making movies now, they don't seem to get it. Or worse, they don't care. And I'm not guessing on this stuff either. Far Beyond the Stars preached to you about how hard it was for the characters Sisko's playing in the future there, Benny Russell. In real life, there actually was a guy like this. His name was Arthur Zagat. Arthur was a lawyer who wrote pulp fiction and science fiction. He gave up his law degree and his law practice to write professionally. Zagat, he collaborated often with his fellow lawyer, Nat Schrancher. I can't pronounce it very well, but the same dynamic as here and the Odo character. He wrote over 500 stories, appeared in a bunch of pulp magazines, Thrilling Wonder Stories, Argosy, Dime Mystery Magazine, Horror Stories, Operator Number 5, and Astounding. He was writing in the 30s and the 40s, successfully, well, and I'm sure there's more, but I don't want to get the communist in the comments section arguing about the minutiae while I'm ignoring the main point. So Benny didn't exist. Benny never existed. But if Benny did exist, he would have been a prolific writer. But the story needs Benny to exist in order to tell that moral message. And it's got two. One, racism, white supremacy, woke slop. The other, I think they're trying to tell you that vision inspires Sisko to never give up and to keep going on with the war. It's not very good, though, because there's no real connection to it. It just happens, and you're supposed to draw that connection. Meh. DS9 is what you get when Pinko commies, who knew how to write, and I said before, this is progressive World War II propaganda, neoliberal sci-fi show with some fairly based nods to the audience, and I'm going to show you why. Cardassians, German occupying force, which almost genocided the Bajoran people. Spiritual, fierce underdogs. Starfleet is the USA, and you've got Sisko, which, you got Dax, the transgender science officer, or the, alien. The sexist, greedy, capitalist bar owner, Quark. The good communist allied Klingons. The bad Cold War communist Dominion. And it's run by a shape-shifting race of changelings that can look like everybody else while destroying their societies from the inside. With a former Cardassian super spy who has to destroy his homeland in order to build it better. The German guilt thing. Like, there's more, but I don't want to make this some kind of political video. I'm being illustrative here. And the point is, none of that matters. You can have any message you want in a story, any moral message. Just write it well, and as an audience member, just know they're not documentaries, they're stories. They're moral messages from a screenwriter to you. So, wrestling isn't real, and neither are any of these episodes, and that's okay. I think the Maquis and the Dominion War are some of the best pieces of sci-fi writing from this entire universe. And the only Star Trek thing I would say is better than this series is Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, which is on this channel. Go check it out. So back to the storytelling. I don't want you to think that modern movies are slop because they are woke or they're communist nonsense, although they are, and they are. They're slop because they are poorly done. They have horrible writing. They have horrible acting. They have bad plots, and they're generally incompetent in everything except for like the massive funding of CGI. Being communist It's like the least offensive thing about them, which is sad because Pinko commies, am I right? So this was actually meant as more of like my contribution to his premise here. So since I'm piggybacking off of somebody else's video about the best Star Trek episode, I'm gonna go with Ascent. It's a banger. And there's a subplot, but it doesn't matter. For the sake of this story, there's two characters. There's Odo and there's Quark. Odo, station chief. He's the archetype of a hard-boiled gumshoe, and Quark, the slippery, low-grade criminal. They have a running relationship over the show where Quark always schemes and tries to get away with plots, and Odo tries to catch him. It's Tom and Jerry for millennials. They play with that relationship here, like Tom and Jerry. They're symbiotic. They're what they call fake opponent allies, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. Odo interrupts Quark as he and his brother are getting ready to see his nephew return from Starfleet Academy. Odo gets word that Quark is to be taken to the Starfleet Grand Jury on Inferna Prime for some criminal reason they don't really say. And Odo, so happy, I've got you dead to rights, he's happy. He says Quark's a member of this criminal organization called the Orion Syndicate, and he's finally getting justice. He caught his man. So during the flight over, they do a little bit of character development. Quark is being affable. He's probing Odo for weaknesses. Odo's playing stoic and tough. Quark finds out he's actually reading romance novels in his spare time. He's got a crush on Commander Kira. So they banter with each other. They get on each other's nerves. They establish they hate each other, but they have fun hating each other. They like hating each other. Quark's big ears find a bomb, and then they crash land on this desolate planet. Next scene in, Odo, they established before he lost his ability to shapeshift into other things, so he can't fly to the top. They have to hoof it. Odo, though, he plays it tough, plays it stoic. They take a communications device and they got to bring it up to the top of the mountain so it can transmit through the atmosphere and actually get them freed. They establish the wants and the needs of the characters. So Odo wants to bring his man in for justice, but what he needs is to stop the self-loathing and be human and have a purpose, right? Quark, you think he wants to avoid prison, but he needs to learn to resolve, to harden up, to be better. The wants actually change in the story here, but I don't want to do a plot spoiler until we get to that point, so just keep that in mind. So they start with a reveal. Quark actually isn't a member of the Syndicate. The bomb that was planted to kill him is proof. If he was a member of the Syndicate, they wouldn't have tried to kill him because he would have died before ratting anybody out as part of their initiation process. Just take the thing on its merits. Turns out Quark's not actually the villain. He's an enemy ally for Odo and his want for justice. He's actually a witness. And then Odo initially revels in the fact that his arch nemesis is just an incompetent boob and not a criminal mastermind. But Quark points out that Odo has been hunting him for years and has never caught him. They both realize that they aren't the Batman or the greatest detective and the criminal mastermind or the Joker. They're just two failures at the core of their character. And that hurts.
You trying to catch a nobody with little success, I might add. So you tell me, which one of us is the bigger failure?
So between their realizations of failure and the elements, they get angry and hostile towards each other. They get into a fight. Odo ends up breaking his leg. The stakes get raised. Quark splints up Odo's leg and drags him up to the mountain with a comms pack on him. And then they reach their lowest point in the story where Quark is about to give up. He can't move. He can't do it. Odo tries to drag himself in the pack, but he can't with his injury. And then he kind of points out, if anybody else was here, they would learn how to succeed. They would be able to do this. Odo's injured. He can't do it. And they kind of hint that this is why Quark wasn't able to make it into the Syndicate. He just wasn't good enough. He wasn't willing to do what he had to do. He just was not any good. And so Quark hits his lowest point and has to discover his need, his moment of character, and make his decision.
And unmourned.
He lost out on joining the Orion Syndicate. He wasn't good enough. He didn't have the grit. And if he dies on that mountain, he will die losing the bar to his brother. He will die losing his nephew to the progressive ideals of Starfleet. And he doesn't even get to die like a Ferengi by selling his bones to the highest bidder. He wanted to be a gangster. Remember what I said about the change? He wanted to be a gangster, a criminal. He wanted to be top of his profession. But what he needed was the resolve, the grit, the character, and the will to win. Now, he gets it through spite, which is good enough. And I actually kind of funny. I kind of find it funny because it's like, you'd expect it to be some happy-go-lucky thing. No, it's just pure spite gets him to the top. They show you a whole bunch of suffering porn where he has to climb through the elements. It's raining, it's whatever. And then they cut away from him. You never find out if he makes it or not. Odo ends up making a log, like an epitaph, where to find Odo, where to find Quark. He's basically assuming they're all going to die. And then he gets teleported onto this ship. Quark made it. And at the end, after they do a little bit of dialogue, let him know what happened, resolve all the things, they show Quark and Odo beside each other in hospital beds, where they affirm they still hate each other. And then they enjoy that moment with a laugh. And that's Odo's character moment. By Quark finding his resolve, Odo found his nemesis. He isn't a screw-up hunting an idiot. He's finding this man who's got potential. He's the villain that he wanted him to be. He's the villain that he needed him to be. Tom and Jerry get to have another adventure.
I meant every word of it.
So did I.
Why do I think it's the best? Is it because it's my favorite? No. I actually like the Dominion stuff and the war stuff way better. I like it, and I think it's the best because it's a simple story told well. I think it's the best example of the series of that. 12 minutes of screen time. Perfectly executed. Is it my favorite? Like I said, no. But this is exactly what sci-fi is. It's the problems of today and the stories of today wrapped up in the setting of tomorrow. It's themes you've seen in old Tom's and Jerry's cartoons. Snowbody Loves Me, or The Night Before Christmas if you want to go see the episodes. Or Conan the Barbarian and Thulsa Doom. It's the same thing there. It resolves a little bit different because at the end, Conan chops off Thulsa's head. But it's the same character arc as Conan the Barbarian. You never look at Quark the same way again, will you? You know what I mean? Characters realizing that their conflict is what makes them who they are. They don't make stuff like this anymore, man. But it's goddamn good. So enjoy it, fellas. While we're at it, I don't know when this one's going to be released, but if you're watching this after February 14th, The Dog Walker, my first literary fiction book, is going to be in Amazon. Go pick yourself up a copy. It'll make you care about a duvet cover. Like, it's good. And again, you see all this talk about story. It's that exact same kind of thing here. It's a guy down on his luck, made a promise to his parents. It's good. It's worth. Yeah, just grab it. I'll have a link in the description. Cheers, fellas.